Bleed, my heart, bleed. How do we find hope when hope is hard to find? It's been attributed to Frank saying, when you get to the end of your rope, tie a knot and hang on. But you know, if you've ever tried to hang from something for very long, oh my, your arms get so tired. It's so hard to do. And yet, when it's all we can do, it's all we can do. So where can we find the strength? Where can we find the hope? How can we find hope when hope is hard to find? Now, I am not assuming, beloveds, I am not assuming that every one of you is in a place where you cannot find hope right now. Maybe you are feeling really good. Maybe you feel energized. But I recognize that these are tough times. Sixth, it was 2 years ago, this Sunday, March 8th, 2020, our last in-person worship service. 2 years. 2 years. That's a long time. Beloveds, I will give you a little piece of hope now. We are already planning for being in person together soon. I'm not going to give you a date because I don't want to tell you something that's not in stone yet, that I can't promise. But plans are already happening. Still, it will be more than 2 years. I know it's been wearing on many people. We've seen in your prayers that you have shared that people are continuing to be sick. Not just with COVID. People get sick all the time. People are sick with all sorts of things. And maybe some among us are sick with things that you are choosing not to share. Burdens. And then, beloveds, then there is the world we live in. In preparation, I went to find the last single day, one day, that the entire world was at peace, when there was no conflict anywhere in the world. I couldn't find a day, not in our lifetimes, no day. I found one date online and somebody quickly shot it down and said, nope, in this country, this offensive was already happening. That's a lot for humanity to carry. And yet, we also go on. We persevere. of this, we have celebrations. We have birthday parties and weddings and anniversaries and fun outings and special moments and all sorts of things that we celebrate. How do we do it? Well, I want to give you a few tools. Because if you don't want to slip into despair, lament is great, but we don't want to slip into despair. So the first thing I want to talk about is lament. Because toxic positivity is not going to help us. Pretending that the burdens that we're carrying, that the things that are causing us dismay aren't there, that doesn't work. Not for long. What we end up doing is burying those feelings just so that they can come out in another way. So some of you I know are gardeners. And you know that if you have a plant that you don't want in your garden, now you may call them weeds, I'm just going to call them plants that you don't want. If you have something you don't want in your garden, you can't just bury it and plant something else over it. You know that it's going to keep coming up unexpectedly in places that you don't want it. You have to dig it out and remove it. The same goes for our feelings and the things in the world that we have to deal with every day. We can't just bury them. They're still there, and they'll come out in unexpected places. We'll get triggered. Now that word's come into use a lot more in the last few years. Maybe you've seen trigger warnings on things. But that's because we do get triggered. And if you haven't paid attention to these feelings, given room for them, then you might get triggered more easily. So what does that mean? Well, sometimes we need to allow ourselves to grieve a bit. I know personally that when I'm feeling really, really bad, I like to watch pretty depressing opera. Why? Because I don't want to watch something where I feel crappy, but everybody on the screen is feeling happy and everything's great. I want to watch people whose lives are in even worse shape than mine. Maybe that's something that will work for you. I don't know. But there's something in that saying, misery loves company. Yeah, I know just how they feel. Oh man, that Tosca, she messes everything up. Oh my gosh. That's something that might help. The laments, as I mentioned before to you, the book of Psalms that is 1/3 laments. I'm going to tell you something. Almost all of those laments end in a saying that's something like, but God, I know really you've always been here for me, so I'm going to sing your praises and I know you're going to get me out of this. But there's one psalm that's for like when you're really just, I'm so angry. And it's Psalm 88. And it really ends with the psalmist telling God, leave me alone, get out of here, everything's terrible, it's gonna be terrible, go away and leave me in my pit. That's not a good place to stay for a long time, but sometimes we just need to sit and feel that for a little bit. And if that's what you need to do, sit and feel that for a little bit. And maybe you want to write your own bit about that. Maybe you want to write your own song or your own poem or your own lament. The poem that we heard this morning is effectively a lament. Read poetry, write poetry. Now, the next thing I'm going to tell you to do is probably the first thing that we should always do. So I'm telling you now. And that's to breathe. But you're always breathing, right? I mean, we breathe all the time. Because sometimes when we get caught up in the moment, a thing that we do is hold our breath. And in that moment, we're depriving our brains of oxygen for a little bit. So it never hurts to tell ourselves, just breathe. Now, breathing can be calming. Just paying attention to your breath can be calming, and there are many ways to do that. There are even apps that you can get, free ones, paid ones, apps that you can get that can do breathing exercises with you. I'm not going to do a breathing exercise with you. I'll tell you a secret. I don't like when people do breathing exercises with me. I don't like breathing to other people's counting. Maybe it's because I have asthma, maybe it's because I have an ornery streak. I like to breathe, so I'm just going to recommend to you, rather than me counting for you, that you just try some breathing exercises, what works for you, paying attention to the air going in and the air going out and what your body feels like, and deep breathing, and remembering not to breathe from your shoulders, but to breathe from your belly, getting full breaths. That can help calm us. Calm is not the same as hope. So why am I mentioning it? Because calm can help us take a step back from whatever intense emotion we're in the moment. That could be intense hopelessness, helplessness, anxiety. Calm can help us reevaluate. So far we have giving room for lament. And the next thing that I want us to remember is that none of us are alone. Now, we've been separated for a long time, but we are already in community together. We have been in community online, but that's still community. None of us are alone. By virtue of your being here online, you are not alone. Well, what does that mean for us? That means that we can support one another. In our chalice lighting this morning, we have been reminded that sometimes one of our lights goes out, another can kindle it for us. Reach out. Reach out when you feel that you need help. You can also reach out just to check in on others and see how folks are doing. Hey, we haven't talked in a while. I just wanted to check in. and see how things are going. Or I just wanted to check in and say hello. That's a great way to remain in community together. There is so much going on in the world right now. And there is much that needs doing. And we, beloveds, we, even all together, as the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Lehigh Valley, we are not going to change it all by ourselves. But we can help to make a difference. We can help to heal the world. There are many ways that you can support Ukraine right now. And there are so many that I am not going to list them here. I'm going to ask you to go online and look at all the different ways that you can support and find what's the best way for you. And let us continue to support one another. Breathe. Allow room for your lament. Be community together. I know our rose will. Namaste.